with Brother Smalls. We're kicking with Brother Smalls, and we're here springing forward with the mayor that helped spring the city of New Rochelle forward, Mayor Noam Bramson. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing all right. I like that turn of phrase, Omar. So I appreciate your saying that, and it's good to be with you. You know, we worked together side by side for many years, and I'm happy to be with you now in this different capacity.
No, I appreciate it, Mayor, and but it's true. You know, you've helped the city through ups and downs, and right now, you know, the city is at a different point, and really, all you needs to do is take a walk, take a stroll, take a ride around the city to see all the different things that are going on. Can you talk to us a little bit about what has transpired? And actually, before we get into that, I wanted to say that you know, I'm still a New Rochelle resident, and about a week or so ago, I heard a message that you provided, and it really made everyone, you know, take pause and reflect on the impact of COVID-19 on our community, and just the human tragedy of it all. And Mayor, you helped the city through that process. Can you talk to us a little bit about the impact COVID-19 has had in New Rochelle and on our nation?
Sure. Well, I mean, it's been a year like no other for all of us, and we've all experienced it in different ways. Of course, for those who are in mourning for loved ones, the burdens are heaviest. But even if your own family has been okay, even if your own health has been okay, our lives have been disrupted in ways that we could scarcely have imagined when we began 2020. New Rochelle, in some ways, is a typical community, no better, no worse than every other American city that's had to grapple with this, every city around the world. But we are unique in at least one respect, in that we were the first place in America to have a general community outbreak. And so for a period of weeks, the spotlight was really on New Rochelle, and we had to deal with these disruptions ahead of everyone else. Quarantines and social distancing and restrictions on large gatherings and testing, all the things that have become familiar over the months were sort of shocking and new when they first arrived in New Rochelle back in March. So I'm very proud of how our community rose to the occasion. Not-for-profit organizations that have done heroic work, volunteers who have come out of the woodwork, and just the general calm maturity with which our residents faced a challenge that you could imagine inspiring panic and fear, but instead inspired a sense of togetherness and determination. So we're not through it yet. COVID is still very much present, and tragically, we are still losing neighbors and loved ones to the disease, but there is certainly light at the end of the tunnel. Vaccination is ramping up. More and more people, when their turn comes, are getting that vaccine, and we can finally begin to imagine a return to something like normal life as we get further into this year. So you know, all of us have been reflecting on this and what this year has meant to us as individuals, what it's meant to us as a community, what it's meant to us as a nation and as a world. And we hope that we'll take those lessons and apply them to doing things better from this point forward.
And Mayor, you've been honest. That's the word that comes to mind with this whole process. You know, we were dealing with this pandemic as you know, as information was coming, right? So there was a bit of it was a newness to this whole situation. And the one thing that I appreciate, many things I appreciate, but I appreciate the fact that you communicated with and still communicate with the city of New Rochelle and our residents, and kind of letting folks know where we're at in the process. Some of the things that we've done, you know, okay, we're headed out the park. Other things, you know, wanting to, you know, do a better job. And so I definitely appreciate that candor.
Well, thank you for saying that, Omar. And I feel like, especially in a crisis, the most valuable commodity is credibility and trust.
Right.
And so it is really important to be straight with people about what you
Yeah.
know and what you don't know.
Right.
And when you discover that there's a mistake and you need to course correct, to just be frank and straightforward about that. And
Yeah.
it's understandable that there be mistakes, especially when you're moving something that is so fast moving, something that is
Yeah.
so unfamiliar.
Yeah.
Even the most competent public health professionals are going to make misjudgments, and
That's
and
right.
um, and we have to be accepting of that, as long as we're honest and upfront about what we're doing right and what we're doing wrong. And certainly, as I look back on the last year, there's some things I would do differently. But on balance, I think our community as a whole has faced it well.
I agree. I agree. Well, Mayor, I started off by saying, the change and noticing the changes in the city of New Rochelle. From someone that's not from New Rochelle, that has not witnessed the changes, can you give us some of the highlights as it relates to what's going on in the city?
Well, I think what you're probably referring to is the dramatic changes in and around our downtown area.
Yes.
Uh, and if you were to visit the downtown today, you would see construction cranes and building frames, sort of an explosion of development on a scale that we've not experienced before in my lifetime. And it's really only the start, because as much as is happening, much more has been approved. So we expect that this wave of development will only be sort of a taste of more to come. So for those of us who support these changes and believe that a healthier, more vibrant downtown is important for our city as a whole, it's thrilling to see the investment finally pouring in, and it's all by design. This is the execution of a development framework that we adopted at the end of 2015, a master development agreement with a well-respected partner, a new zoning code for our entire downtown, a completed environmental review for the entire build-out plan. You put those three things together, and you make our downtown a shovel-ready environment for investors, which has been a critical change in how New Rochelle has been perceived. And the reason I'm so excited about it is, let's think about what this means. In local terms, it's more commercial tax revenue to help pay for public goods without overburdening residential taxpayers. It's new job opportunities. It's a wider range of goods and services within our borders, so people don't feel like they need to shop and dine by going elsewhere. From a regional perspective, it's housing with good access to transportation, which is going to be critical in terms of attracting jobs to the New York metro area. And even from a global perspective, transit-oriented development that is less car dependent, that
Right.
has less cost for heating and cooling dwelling units, that's an important part of any kind of comprehensive climate action strategy.
Yeah.
So I'm thrilled by what's happening right now in New Rochelle,
Yeah.
even as I recognize that people have different opinions about it.
Oh,
And
sure.
so it's an ongoing dialogue of how can we ensure that everyone benefits, that this is truly inclusive, sustainable, equitable growth. That's our goal.
Yeah, I was just talking to a neighbor this morning, and he was, he just brought a electric vehicle, and he was, kind of, asking about where the chargers are going to be, and he didn't know that, there was a charger right on Hamilton, Hamilton Avenue there, and again, by design, these charging stations are positioned throughout the city for this new wave of EV cars.
Yeah, and that's one good example of a broader shift that we need in our city and our society towards
Right.
more sustainable practices, which also involves the infrastructure that will support those sustainable practices. And I'm so excited about what seems to be emerging out of the new administration in Washington, the new Secretary of Transportation, Pete Buttigieg, that they are redefining infrastructure to accommodate and encompass all the things that we're talking about right now. It's not just about getting a car as quickly as possible from point A to point B. It's how do you have, as you just pointed out, electric vehicle infrastructure? How do you provide for pedestrian and cyclist mobility? How do you provide for mass transit? How do you build walkable, livable communities?
Yeah.
All of these things go hand in hand, and there are such good examples of us trying to make that shift in New Rochelle. For example, the link, which is what we call the repositioning of Memorial Highway into a linear park, really checks all of those boxes. You can unmake this terrible planning error from 50 years ago and create a real asset to our community that provides for real multimodal transportation access, as well as using our own 2 feet. So it's going to be a great change, and New Rochelle can be a part of this shift in philosophy.
No, that's it. That's it. And those are all very exciting initiatives. I wanted to ask you, what are some of the challenges that are facing the city of New Rochelle? I mean, again, it sounds excellent. A lot of things that are going on. What are some of the things that keep you up at night?
Well, we already talked about COVID and its impact. So setting that one aside, because it's a big one. I'm always concerned about the long-term finances of the community. There's got to be a balance point between what people pay and what they get in return. And if you don't feel as though you're getting value for your dollar, then you look elsewhere. You vote with your feet. And so we always want to make sure that New Rochelle is doing its part from that perspective. I do want to make sure that all this growth is paired with the right kind of planning and infrastructure, with the right quantity of open space, with the right level of affordable housing, with the right level of utility service. So we have to make sure that we're approaching it in a comprehensive way, and we end up with an environment that's functional at the end of the day, and not a mess. And I think we've done that well so far, but it's something we have to keep on top of. I'm concerned about the reputation of our school district. Now, that's not directly within my authority. The city government and the school district are separate entities, but the health of our school system is obviously of paramount importance to the community as a whole. From a parent perspective, I've been thrilled with our schools. I'm very pleased with the education my sons are getting. And I'm happy to recommend the schools to anyone who's thinking of moving to New Rochelle. But I do think the schools have taken some reputational hits over the last few years because of a series of events and controversies, and that's something that I worry about as well. So there's plenty to keep me up at night, but I do think on balance, setting aside COVID, that New Rochelle is moving in the right direction, and that for the most part we're facing these challenges intelligently and in a fashion that's going to serve us well for many years to come.
Mayor, how important is the involvement of all New Rochelle residents from all segments of the city, from all walks of life? How important is that to you?
It's really important. Look, I mean, as much as those of us in public office might like to think we have our finger on the pulse of a community, when you're talking about 80,000 people, extraordinarily diverse by every metric, it's not possible for a 7-member council to really be fully cognizant of all those views and all those needs and all those interests. And so we welcome public input in whatever fashion it's provided. And there are many cases in which we actively solicit that public input. I mean, just to give you an example that's fresh in my mind because it's happening right now, we're in the final stages of adopting our police reform plan. And I think our initial document was a pretty good one, but it was significantly amended in response to public input. And I think it's a better plan as a consequence. And for that matter, the initial document too was informed by a lot of public input by a volunteer committee that we worked with to make sure that the issue was examined in a holistic way and one that was reflective of the different perspectives that surround policing in New Rochelle.
Sure.
Again, that's just one example. But almost always our decision making is improved when it's done in an open and transparent way, and when we give people in the community a real opportunity to weigh in.
That's great, and I'm glad to hear. And I know this for a fact. The importance of having all segments of our city, our great city, participate in the political process and the economic process. And what's going on in the city of New Rochelle. Mayor, we've known each other for a fairly long time. You've been with the city for, I'm going to say, 20 plus years. Would you consider yourself an elder statesman?
uh, I know that question is intended to be flattering, and yet somehow I find it depressing. Um, look. There's no denying I've been at this a while now. I joined the city council in 1996,
Mhm.
so this is, it's 25 years. The great majority of my adult life has been spent in city government, and it's been a joy and a pleasure. Notwithstanding, there are moments of frustration, like with any job. Um, I don't know that I'd use the word elder statesman. That sort of implies to me like someone who's ready to be put out to pasture. But I've been at it for a while, and I hope in that time I have acquired some reasonable level of understanding of how this community works and what its opportunities are and what its challenges are. And I do my best to apply that experience to the betterment of New Rochelle.
With that understanding, what would Noam Bramson say to the younger Noam Bramson?
Oh, that's a great question.
Yeah.
Patience and persistence.
Got it.
I think when you first get into office, there's kind of an eagerness to accomplish everything yesterday. And that's actually a good impulse, because I think too often government sort of sits back and doesn't have a sense of urgency, and we should. And yet there are a lot of issues that need time to ripen and mature.
Yeah.
And things that are rushed sometimes are not done as well as they could be otherwise. And also, sometimes issues take on a kind of flashpoint controversy that can seem all-consuming, and then 2 months later, you're on to the next thing, and that intensity can sometimes distort your decision making. And so I would encourage my younger self to take that kind of long view and to make each decision in such a way that it'll be most beneficial to the community over that long-term stretch. And I guess I would give that advice to people starting out in public life as well. But anyway, if I thought more about it, I'm sure there are other pieces of advice I can give my younger self too.
I'm sure of it. I'm sure of it. Mayor, talk to us about collaboration and the importance of collaboration. I mean, I know you've been at the helm at various different times and emergencies, and actually with COVID-19. And talk to us about the importance of collaboration on all levels of government.
Yeah, look, I think it's vital, and no one person will do as good a job as a group of people who are all combining their talents and their perspectives and giving you a more complete whole. And I just think about my colleagues on the city council, each of whom brings a distinct orientation to the table, and each of them knows certain things much better than I do. And so it's natural that depending on the issues, I might defer to one or another, or they might defer to me. And I think that has made for a good working relationship amongst the seven of us, in which we all learn from each other. So I'm grateful for that, and also with our professional staff, Chuck Strom, who you know very, very well. You worked immediately under him for many years, and he's the city manager. And by any strict reading of the charter, his day-to-day responsibilities are more significant than mine. So we do have to sort of collaborate minute to minute, hour to hour, and keep each other in the loop on what we're doing. And I feel lucky that he and I have worked well together and respect each other. I can't even imagine what this job would be like for either one of us without that good relationship. And in truth, there have been times historically in the city of New Rochelle, not overlapping with my service, but I've heard about it, when the mayor and city manager just hated each other and would spend all their days firing against each other. And it was deeply damaging for the city. And so we all have to work together as colleagues, even if we disagree from time to time, which is natural. It'd be strange for us not to disagree from time to time, but we have to do so in the context of respect and mutual trust. And I think we have that in New Rochelle, and we're fortunate because of it.
No, thank you, Mayor, for saying that, and thank you for giving Chuck a shout out. And I would be remiss from saying, he's been just a mentor to me, and he took a chance on me some, 15 plus years ago, and I've learned so much under his tutelage. Mayor, I wanted to ask you, I've known you for quite some time, but tell us something that, we may not know about you, something that you do, something that you like that, the average person wouldn't know.
Okay, so my one sort of luxurious indulgence is fine food. So like I skimp on everything. I'm like a cheapskate on everything. Like my shoes are kind of a disgrace. My mother has to tell me every time she sees me that they need to be polished.
Yeah.
My suits all kind of are threadbare. Our house needs to be painted. But I will treat myself to very high quality meals. So that's every vacation is somehow oriented around got to eat well. I'll look forward to a fine meal like weeks in advance. So
Nice.
I'm a little nutso about that, but I guess we all have to have something that is kind of an indulgence. So that's mine.
Got it. Got it. Well, Mayor, I have to say that your suit game has come up, over the years.
I just bought a couple of new ones, but it'll be years before I buy the next round. So check in with me in like 2024, and you'll have a different opinion.
I thought you were going to use wear the bow tie that I purchased you, but I don't know.
I should have. I forgot, but I should have.
Mayor, can you tell us, when you look back, what was your greatest accomplishment, and tell us if you had a do-over, what would you do over?
Well, I think the greatest accomplishment is what we already talked about. It's the downtown redevelopment and the framework for attracting investment. I think that's in terms of the significance and the longevity of the impact that will have on New Rochelle, the positive impact that will have on New Rochelle. I think that sort of eclipses everything else in my mind. My greatest regret, if I had to pick one, and interestingly, it's kind of in the same sphere. It's the way that the Echo Bay project collapsed a few years ago. That was a chance we had to redevelop our waterfront, and we're getting another crack at it now. So it's like, if at first you don't succeed, try again. But it was painful. That was we spent many years trying to move forward with a proposal that I still, even in retrospect, think would have been good for New Rochelle. And I regret that I was not able to bring that into port in a way that I hoped. And I think it set us back at the waterfront a few years. But all you can do is learn from your mistakes, and I think we have, and incorporate those lessons as you move forward.
Got it. Mayor, for the new family, for somebody coming in to New Rochelle, coming in from a different state, coming in from New York City, could you tell us, or tell that person, what does the city of New Rochelle look like in 2031?
Well, our tagline is ideally yours. And we didn't arrive at that by accident or just because it sort of sounds nice. It really is supposed to express in a pithy way what New Rochelle is all about. And it reflects the fact that this is a community that welcomes everyone, that is home to just about every kind of person, that has a remarkable range of housing opportunities and housing stock, that has a remarkable range of land use characteristics, that encourages creative expression. And so, like, whoever you are, whatever you want to be, you can find a home in New Rochelle, and you will be valued in New Rochelle. And that's true today, and I hope it'll be true also in the next decade, because we want to hold on to those characteristics. I think what will be different is we will be a more environmentally sustainable community. We will have a stronger and more vibrant economy. We will have a better relationship between our residential and open space areas and our more dense, urbanly vital areas. So it's a matter of holding on to what already works and improving things that need improvement. And I think by the time we get to the 2030s, New Rochelle will be an even more attractive place for people to locate or remain than it is today.
Well, Mayor, thank you so much for that. Thank you so much for your time. Please give my regards to the family. And, before we go, I just wanted to ask you one more question. Will you come back on the show?
Sure. If as long as you're hosting it, I'm happy to do it.
Okay.
And thanks for having me, Omar. And same in return to your family.
No, I appreciate it. Thank you so much, Mayor, and enjoy the rest of your day.
You too. Be well, Omar.
Informs, uplifts, and elevates, and inspires, takes you higher. Say it again.